work with not enough resources to come to it.
Okay.
But the way that we work now is we work from home. Like you mentioned, you're in your home office today. I'm in my office today. But when I'm not in my office, I got my phone with me. I got my laptop
Yes.
with me, right? Just because I shut it off doesn't mean those notifications don't come through. And even if I
Right.
dim them,
Right.
it doesn't mean that my brain isn't running those thoughts, those beliefs, those feelings. And if you care about your work and the people you work with and the things you're trying to accomplish there, that stuff naturally comes up. And if we don't have a way that draws your attention away from it to turn those things down, work is always on.
Yes.
And so that's where people's passion and love for their work can actually turn into like an obsession and can actually
Mm.
drive some of the burnout.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious. Motivation. Be audacious. Innovation. Be audacious. Inspiration. Be bold. Motivation. Be audacious.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audaciously podcast. It's always a pleasure to be here. This show, of course, is designed to help you live your best audacious life ever. This is a space where we explore real stories, meaningful insights, and practical tools that help you move through life with greater courage, clarity, and purpose. Thank you for spending a part of your day here with us. I never take that lightly, whether you're listening on a commute, during a workout, or in a quiet moment just for yourself. I'm grateful that you're here. Now, I want you to think of life like driving a high performance vehicle. You can have the best engine, the sharpest mind, and all the ambition in the world, but if you ignore the dashboard lights, push the engine without rest, or never stop to recalibrate, eventually something breaks down. Burnout is not a sudden crash. It's the warning lights we overlook. Emotional regulation is that steering wheel that keeps us steady. Self-awareness is knowing when to slow down. Self-compassion is giving yourself permission to pull over, refuel, and reset. And leadership is understanding that how you drive affects everyone riding with you. Today's conversation sparks directly to that journey. My guest today is Garrett Wood. He's the founder of Gnosis Therapy. Garrett is a national board certified health and wellness coach, a clinical hypnotherapist, and an executive functioning specialist. More importantly, he is someone who has lived through burnout, chronic stress, as well as high pressure leadership environments, and now helps others navigate their way through those situations with greater clarity and intention. Garrett's mission is to help high achieving, high masking professionals reconnect with themselves by building emotional regulation, self-compassion, and sustainable fulfillment so success no longer comes at the cost of well-being. Garrett is especially relevant to today's conversation because his work sits at the intersection of burnout, emotional intelligence, leadership impact, and self-compassion. And in this episode, we explore the early signs of burnout and why they often go unnoticed, how emotional regulation shapes both personal health and workplace culture, why working harder is not always the answer, how leadership and energy ripples throughout our teams, the role of self-compassion. That's a big one because and what that plays in sustainable success. This conversation is for leaders, professionals, caregivers, creatives, and anyone who feels that they are carrying too much for too long. So with all that being said, let's get into this very powerful and thoughtful conversation with Garrett Wood. Enjoy. Hey, Garrett, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Spend some of my morning with you.
Yeah, no, like I think the idea, and I think I probably said this a million and one times, and I've said it to you at least twice, I'd imagine, but the idea of being able to share, right, and provide insights, and whether it's you talking about your journey, what got you to where you're at, or how you help others get to where they're going to be. I think it's all great stuff, and I really do legit feel privileged to be able to engage in these types of conversations. So thank you for helping me to move my needle forward, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
one of the things that we spend a lot of time, and actually one of the analogies we oftentimes use, about the concept of life being like a journey, right? And we're all on our own individual pathway, and on that path is going to have its own obstacles, its own pitfalls, its own challenges, and we're all going to face them, right? And it's really incumbent on us to kind of get past them. If that, like, so think of that boulder right in your path, right? And it's you get up, over, around, through, under, whatever you got to do, but to get to the other side, because that's where the greatness lies. And the piece, I think, what gets us oftentimes into trouble is we look at what other people's paths and what they've done and what they're doing. And not that we can't learn from people. So I want to be clear. I'm not saying we can't learn things from other people, but at the end of the day, their path is their path and mine is mine, right? And yours is
Yeah.
yours. And so
Yep.
I think that little subtle, it's a slight nuance, if you will, but that shift really can make a difference in understanding of what you have in front of you. And so, all that to be said, again, you help people who work through stress and burnout, and to get to the other side of that bowl. So that's where you spend your energy and time. And so perhaps as a starting point, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience, and talk about the work that you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It does. Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to mention it earlier. Tell our audience all about Garrett Wood.
Yeah. So my name is Garrett Wood. I'm the founder of Gnosis Therapy. I'm a national board certified health and wellness coach. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist and an executive functioning specialist. But that's kind of like a misnomer because it sounds like, ooh, these fancy titles, all these things. But really, I'm just a person who's been through it. One of my favorite quotes is Hunter S. Thompson, where he says, like, the person who knows where the line is the one that's crossed it one too many times, right? And be able to come back, luckily, fortunately enough,
Yes.
to be able to show other people, hey, this is where it is.
Yeah.
Watch out. This is dangerous. And as you're mentioning, my story is different than other people's stories, and some people can see it in there and vice versa. But there's making sure that you understand the importance of someone else's story where it is applicable for you
Yeah.
or not,
Yeah.
I think is a really challenging thing to do when you're listening to these stories. I remember one time I was in a CrossFit for a good season of my life, about 8 years, and got injured pretty decently. And most of the time it was because I was looking at someone like the world's strongest man, according to them, Rich Froning at the time. And I would look at his workout times and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. He's doing it as prescribed. Okay, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to do what he's doing.
Right.
But I am not the world's strongest man, nor will I ever be.
Right.
And my physiology, my anatomy, my strengths are not his. And so even doing the best thing that he could do for his health was wonderful for him, but it tore
Yes.
me apart from the insides out. And it
Mm.
wasn't that I wasn't doing the techniques correct, or I wasn't getting enough recovery. It was what was designed for him to be
Yes.
excessive, like excel, was excessive for me. And so it was really challenging for me to get into the nuance and understand the difference between that and programming and this idea of scalability. If he's doing his workout and it takes him 2.5 minutes to get through this entire workout of the day, and it for me doing the same weight, same time, same reps, it would take 20 minutes to 2 hours, depending on what the workout was. But his time under tension is just like boom,
Yep.
versus mine was this whole thing, right? Take me 2 weeks to recover. So when you're listening to other people's stories, you're looking at their workouts, you're
Yes.
looking at what they're going through, you're looking at that and you're going, oh, okay, what applies to me? What doesn't?
Yes. Yeah.
Lots of inspiration, but make sure you don't take it as prescribed, right?
Well, and thank you for making that point because, I think that's where the discernment comes in, right? Not to say that we can't learn from other people or there's aspects of their stories that aren't applicable, that aren't. Yeah. Not to say that there's aspects of their story that's not applicable to us and how we live our lives. I just think it's important to understand that it can't be a cookie cutter because they're not us, right? But we still can learn, right? We can still learn, and that's why we do things like listen to podcasts and write books and go in to see public speakers or go to see health professionals because there's things that we can learn, but it's very much understanding. And I'm really glad that you made that point. What applies to me?
Yeah. And in that moment too, because what worked for you 2 weeks ago may not be what works for you today, right? That's the other hard part. A lot of people go back and be like, oh, well, when I was doing this thing, it was great. Life was perfect then. And they try to bring that thing from the past back into the present, and it no longer works. They're maybe not the same person. Their life maybe not the same.
I'm not 15
What
years
worked
old
when you were
anymore.
6.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a kid no more. What do you mean? Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
now you work with high achieving, and I like the word high masking professionals. And curious if you maybe could identify, I don't know, are there any sort of common like burnout triggers that you've seen that are that across this group of people?
Yeah, it's this idea that even they would never call themselves high achieving. And they would definitely feel like they're masking, but they may not use that term itself. They would feel like, oh, no one knows how hard this is for me. Everyone thinks I have it together, but I'm not satisfied. No matter what I have here in front of me, I'm
Mhm.
on the other side of that boulder. I've come through the obstacles and I'm here now and I'm still not satisfied. Okay, so does that mean I look at that bigger boulder? Is that going to be the thing that gets me there?
Right, right,
How
right.
do I know? Do I have enough energy left to do that? And even then, am I happy? Am I like fulfilled in a sense?
Yeah.
I think those are the commonalities between most of those people. Never feeling satisfied, always feeling and willing to do the hard work, but never feeling like they're getting the return on that effort.
Got you. Got you. Um, for well, actually, I was going to talk about recognizing the signs of that, but I actually want to go back and maybe
Yeah.
can you tell me, sort of in your sort of personal journey, what have you been taking from that to make you good at what you do now and help others the way you do?
Yeah. I do think that there's a lot of beliefs that we grow up with as kids, right? There's experiences we go through, there's things that we do when we're young, and they kind of inform how we think about ourselves, others, and the world and our place in it. And it's really challenging because as you go through life, sometimes you'll get a chance to outgrow some of those beliefs and they're no longer functional. They're no longer helpful. And in fact, like you may not even be aware that you believe them, but they're still there. My favorite version of that's my buddy. When he was a kid, he loved his dad. His dad wanted him to eat pizza. So he said, hey, if you eat the crust of your pizza, it'll give you curly hair like me. And it wasn't until my friend was like 35 years old and had kids of his own that he said that out loud to his son. And when he said it out loud, he knew it wasn't true, but in his heart,
Right.
it felt true to him. And so for his whole life, for 30 years, he believed that eating the crust of pizza would give you curly hair. And he is not. He's a very smart man. But in his heart, he believed it because he had never examined that belief. He didn't even know it was in there until he got called out. But that's like a cute version of the story. There's a
Yeah.
ton of other beliefs that we hold that are running in the background that we're not even aware of
Yep.
that are perpetuating some of the frustrations, angers, and heartache and hurt that we perpetuate in ourselves just because we haven't had a chance to pull them up and address them and recognize how much we've outgrown them. And so
Yeah.
some of those beliefs are like not enough, not lovable, not worthy, I don't matter, those types of things. And some of the behaviors that feel like they drive a lot of people to be high achieving, to be able to accomplish great things.
Mhm.
People talk about the Mamba mentality. It might actually be coming from this insecurity or this insecurity and trying to create evidence to
Right.
unprove those
Yeah.
beliefs. Like, no, that's not me. Look at all
Yeah.
these rings I have. Look at all these
Right.
accolades I've gotten.
Right.
This can't be true, right?
Yeah, and then what happens, and using mom mentality is a perfect example. That becomes heralded as that's the what you have to work towards to be right, and everyone goes, oh, I got to adopt that because if they equate that mentality to success and
Absolutely.
championships and the rings, like you said, right, and all these. Whereas it very well could have been just developed because I needed to find a way of coping, or I needed to prove I was enough, or I needed like whatever. It could be anything. It's funny when I was thinking about limiting beliefs, I was thinking on a much sort of simpler scale. So when I was a kid, I used to, and I don't know about you, but like I used to tear apart running shoes all the time. Like my feet were always ripping through them all the time. Maybe they were made cheap back in the day. I don't know, but like I was just always murdering my shoes. And my mom, when we went to church, and she would have church, and we'd go to church, and there was a set of shoes I only could wear on Sunday. These are your Sunday shoes. They were done to preserve my shoes. That's why. If I wore them any other, I would probably rip them apart. But in my mind, it was always Sunday shoes. So years, like these are the only shoes I wear on Sunday. And these are dedications. And in an adult, I had Sunday shoes. But it was like, why? Like why can't I wear them? And like, I get it as a kid why I was ripping my shoes apart, but you get older now, you let those things go. So see, that's again more of the cute side of things, but to the same sort of element that we have
Yeah.
these things in our head that we just hold on to. I had another story. A little girl, and she used to watch her mother make turkey for like Thanksgiving, And the mom
Yeah.
used to break the wings off and put in the side of the pot. And the reason she did that is because the pot was too small. But it became the mom's understanding, well, hey, well, there's a family tradition. We make turkey, break the wings off. And it wasn't until the mother, so, the mother's daughter said, why do we do that? They started to trace back like, oh, the pot was too small. Get a bigger pot, right? And so the stuff running in the background, to your point, is really what I'm getting, the long way of getting to that. Yes.
Yeah. When we're doing things because that's just the way we've done them. And it's just we're running on habit, right? We're running on whatever we were told, believed, or understood to be true at the time. And
Yeah.
things change. We
Yeah.
change, right? Environments change. Pots change. Shoes change.
Yes. Yeah. 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 So, so again, burnout is a space that you spend time in and helping people sort of work through that. Are there kind of early signs that people could recognize before burnout actually arrives? Because burnout isn't, it's not like a light switch you turn on and you're suddenly burnt out. It's a bit of a process, isn't it?
So full blown burnout, like the worst of it, absolutely. It's you've been sitting in it for a while. But even if you are experiencing some of the early signs of it, that is a state of burnout. It just may not be the first full blown experience of it,
Okay.
right? And we've all kind of felt a similar version of that. Like as you're developing a cold, sometimes oh, okay, I'll get some chicken noodle soup, I'll get some sleep, I'll take my vitamin C. Ooh, okay, I worked through that a lot faster than if I just ignored it,
Mm,
kept working, and then all of a sudden crash and burn, right? And
right.
burnout's not too dissimilar because it's defined by the World Health Organization as a workplace phenomenon where there's too much work with not enough resources to come to it.
Okay.
But the way that we work now is we work from home. Like you mentioned, you're in your home office today. I'm in my office today. But when I'm not in my office, I got my phone with me. I got my laptop
Yes.
with me, right? Just because I shut it off doesn't mean those notifications don't come through. And even if I
Right.
dim them,
Right.
it doesn't mean that my brain isn't running those thoughts, those beliefs, those feelings. And if you care about your work and the people you work with and the things you're trying to accomplish there, that stuff naturally comes up. And if we don't have a way that draws your attention away from it to turn those things down, work is always on.
Yes.
And so that's where people's passion and love for their work can actually turn into like an obsession and can actually
Mm,
drive some of the burnout. So sometimes, we hear the story like, love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
yeah.
And then for some people, that might be true. But for others, love what you do and you will never not work a day in your life. They're always at work because that's all they care about all the time. And we just don't operate that way, right? We're just not good as a species at doing that.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
breaks. We need
Yes.
threats, adaptation, challenges, response, and then downtime recovery. If we don't get that recovery piece, we get in trouble. And so one of the earliest signs of burnout is getting tired, being like a little bit shorter temper, getting frustrated, not being able
Right.
to think creatively about something.
Mm,
If you drive in a car, probably getting a little bit more angry than you should at the person just putting on their blinker or not putting on their blinker. Those
right.
little signs of little things on the edges getting a little more frustrated. Usually we chalk it up to like, oh, maybe I need to eat something. No, this thing is really challenging. That person's a real jerk. But our ability to kind of calm ourselves down and get focused again and be able to tune into the good feelings, feelings of joy,
Yeah.
gratitude, excitement. If you haven't felt those in a while,
Right.
that's actually the earliest sign of burnout.
Mm. My guess is, when clients and folks come to you, they're not at the beginning. They're well beyond that, and you have to start the process of kind of going back and figure out where it started. I imagine, is that fair to say?
Fair to say, yeah. Sometimes the people that I work with, they've been through burnout before. It's not their first time. And what worked for them then, like quitting their job, starting over, they are not in a position to be able to do this time around. Maybe they have a larger family. Maybe they can't. They have a larger house. Maybe they got a bigger car.
Sorry,
They can't
Gary,
just
I got
afford
to
to
go.
walk away.
Sorry, I got to go back. I mean, like the idea of being burnt out and doing it again. Idea, like it's the idea of experiencing burnout, knowing what it
Mhm.
is, knowing that
Yeah.
it didn't serve you, you didn't like it, it was difficult to get through, but then go through it
Yeah.
again. That's incredible. You see
Yeah.
that often?
Habits die hard, often. And in fact, if you've burned out one time, you're more than likely to burn out again. And if you're burned out three times, you're more than likely to experience it more than most people. It's a
Explain
type
how
of,
that happened. I'm trying because again I'm going
yeah.
through the I'm taking a very simplistic view here and pardon my ignorance, but I'm like, wait a second, I didn't like it. It didn't serve me. It hurt me. It maybe affected my relationships. Whatever. We
Yeah.
got through it. That's to be celebrated. Yay, we're on the other side. But then you do it again.
Yeah. So if we go back to Something that comes up with burnout is a personality type where you can have those signals of your body
Yeah.
where things aren't going well, and you can be really good at tuning it down,
Okay.
which in the moment and you're in danger and you need to get something done is a really effective tool. And we all have an element of that, right? Like for this silly idea of like us running from a lion, which none of us would ever hopefully ever have to deal with again. Great. Like, if your knee have pain, you got ankle pain, you got all these aches and pains, because you're in your 40s and older, all of a sudden you never get rid of those anymore. You're running from that lion, those aches and pains just kind of disappear into the background and you're able to
Right.
perform. For
Mm-hmm.
people that experience burnout, a lot of them are really, really good at that. So when other people go, hey, I've had enough, I'm going to top out for today. They're like, what are you doing? We're just getting going. They're excited and encouraged. Something in their brain gives them more juice than other people. They're going
Mm-hmm.
5, 6, 7 hours back to back and enjoying it. And it's not that they're not feeling it. It's that it doesn't matter to them in that moment. It actually feels like it's part and parcel of the process. That
Okay.
without that feeling, they're not even sure if they're really doing good work. It's almost like this association of like it has to hurt for it to be worth doing in the first
Right.
place.
That's right. I've got to feel the pain or it's not worth it.
Or it's not worth it. If I did all that and I didn't feel the pain or the soreness or the ache or something,
Right.
was I even really working hard at all? And their
Mm.
capacity for hard work is really large. And it's probably their competitive advantage, something that they identify themselves with. I'm a person who can do hard work. And so when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and I'm tough, right? And the hard part is like that can be really adaptive for
Mm-hmm.
short windows. But when it
Mm-hmm.
becomes like your defining feature, that's when you're going to burn out. And so when we're going through burnout and recover physically from it, if we don't address that mindset and that identity that comes with it,
Yep.
it's inevitable that we're going to burn out again. Because if you're a person who enjoys hard work and is good at working hard, and that's your core feature that separates you from other people around you, then the only way we can ever be yourself is if you're burning out. And that's dangerous. Like
Mm.
that's where people get stuck in it.
Right. You just you identify with this is the way it is, kind of,
This is who I am.
or who I am. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I see the
Yeah.
trap. No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. And it almost, if I'm not this, who am I? If I'm not
Right.
a person who works hard or overworks or puts myself through this, what does that mean about me? Who am I even without this thing?
That's right. How to
Right.
identify with it. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about how you help clients sort of shift from this burnout period or phase into sort of like a place of fulfillment. I mean, that's kind of the goal as I see it, right, Garrett? Like we were trying to get to this audacious way of living as we talk here, right? And living life audaciously, but you can't do that if you're in the midst of a burnout. What does that process look like? I don't. I mean, I'm not necessarily the intricate details step by step, but just kind of an overview of where you start. I'd imagine awareness is a big starting point.
Yeah, usually by the time people show up at my doorstep, right, they're pretty aware. They're aware, they're acutely aware rather of the
Right.
the aches and pains, literally and figuratively, of burnout in their life. But what's driving it for them specifically is different, especially this time around. And then how do we do to address it? And what's going to be effective is going to be different every time too. So the big picture, the three-step process there is assess, accommodate, and then align. Those are kind of our big three steps. And that first assessment, we're going to go through what are all the different driving factors? Okay, where are you high or low on this? Where in your burnout are you? Because if you're in the first stages of it, it's very different to make a successful intervention than if you're in the last stages. If you're in the
Right.
first stages, we can go for the most challenging thing that you don't have in your life. We can add that in. We can add more effort in, and it'll create more rewards. But if you're in that final stage, doing more is actually going to make it worse. So we
Yeah.
have to figure out not only what can we let go of right now, but like what actually is beneficial to your well-being and do more of that. I, is it literally like an extra hour of sleep? Is it hanging out with your significant other and getting some more cuddles? What is the thing that's
Mm.
actually working in
Mm.
this moment? And how can we double down, triple down, quadruple down on that thing? And so that idea of assessing where they are is really important to make sure that the specific intervention matches that person, where they are, what's driving it, and where they're at in their stage of burnout.
I'd imagine being very clear on knowing the things you like are important, right? Like I equate it to, like, so I'll use myself as an example.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love podcasting. Like it's the thing I enjoy. It drives me. It's a great place for me to be, great space for me to be in. And
Yeah.
what often happens is so I kind of equate it to like life kind of like hills and valleys, right? The hills where things are
Yeah.
great, we're celebrating, we're happy, everything's fantastic. But every so often, as life continues, we go down in those valleys, and it's not really nice. It's crappy. It hurts. There's disappointments. All the things that we don't like are typically down the valley. And so for myself, whenever I feel, and I'm not immune to this stuff. I'm a human too, and I have my feelings and
Yeah.
emotions, and I get caught up in stuff, and my head goes places sometimes. But when I get there, and I'm in that valley, it's like, okay, and because I've done it enough, I've got really good at figuring, okay, how do I get out of it as quickly as possible? Like, I know I'm
Yeah.
going to be here, but I can't stay here. And for me, I was like, I can't stay here because there's too much to do. So I can stay here. What can I do? And so I'll fall back and hey, I'll just podcast, right? And so my podcast production, when it's significantly high, I'm going through a rough patch. That's how you know, right? Because I fall back into that. So my point though to all I was saying is very much about knowing those things that motivate you, that drive you, that get you excited, that gives you energy. Is so knowing that to be able to fall back on that when you get into these moments where it's not feeling great.
100%. Those moments in your life, like a lot of people think about this. There's the values and action survey. The
Okay.
guys out of Wharton School of Business use it. It's a big deal where they go through and they kind of go, okay, here's the 65 values. Which five are your natural strengths that you have to display? And if you're in a position in your life where you can't display those strengths, you're not going to be okay. And so we need to
Gotcha.
make sure that like, you can display those strengths. And then what are your five other ones that like when you can do all 10 of them, you're really rocking and rolling. The hard part is like picking those words out of like a crossword puzzle is kind of arbitrary. It doesn't really resonate with people. A little bit different is going, hey, what are five moments in your life where you felt the most alive, fulfilled, not
Mm,
accomplished necessarily? You're not like winning like the, hey, I just won the Super Bowl and going to Disneyland moments, right? But like, hey, just a day to day, week to week,
right.
month to month, where are those moments where you truly feel present and in that moment, 100% in flow? Okay, what do all of those different moments have in common? Maybe those are your values and your strengths. And if we haven't had a chance to touch base with those in a while, hey, maybe that's an easy way to get going and get started. There's a lady, Heather Morgan, who's a divinity minister up in Canada. And that is actually practice that she's developed, which is really cool to be able to work with some of that stuff, to be able to see her work. Heather Morgan's really carry life for other people because she's been through it. She's got some disabilities. So when she
Mhm.
works with people, there's moments where she can't do what she used to be able to do or what normal people
Right.
would want to
Right.
do. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
so finding those things that she can do that still bring her joy and then being able to do more of them and then being able to
Mm.
bring that message with others is pretty cool. Yeah. So for you, sounds like podcasting is one of those things.
It
Getting with
is.
the
I tell
people,
you.
sharing the stories. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I'm 600 episodes or so, and we keep going, and it's just been about like just like again, I've gone through some stuff, right? So what I do, I
Yeah.
podcast, right? So that's what it is, and
Yeah.
I think that's I joke about it, but I think it's so important that we have a really clear picture of who we are and what drives us, what motivates us, what gets excited, what makes us happy, and because those are the good positive feelings that we want to experience more of, right? So it's the quickest way to get there is what I'm pointing to.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting about that is the more you experience those positive emotions, the
Hmm.
easier it is to experience more of them.
Yeah.
S- So there is like this Midas touch, right? Everything he touches turns to gold. So he touched his daughter, and oh no, like that's the love of his life. He loved gold, he loved her. Now he's got to compromise between the two. If we're in a negative state, if we're in, overwhelmed, kind of not feeling positive emotions that move us and energize us, but those ones that kind of slow us down and drag us down, it depends on what we go around and touch with that. When we're in that state, we can associate that state with almost anything that we run into over time. And the more
Beautiful.
consistently we're in that negative state with those things, the more those things like kind of weigh us down. With the opposite of that, if we're in a positive state, all those things that we're doing in there makes it
Ah,
easier to grow and build and feel all those exact same things. So these books, like you mentioned, your podcasting, every time that I would get in a funk or like get confused or frustrated or
yeah.
overwhelmed, it's really easy to go pick up a book and read through and learn something else. But the joy of reading for me is actually enjoyable. Break from my own mind. I'm in someone
Yes.
else's. I'm
Yes.
feeling their emotions, not my own. And it makes it
Yes.
easier to kind of carry those emotions moving forward. Same kind of thing.
Well, and we'll often talk about the ripple effect, right? And what that. So that's what you're really pointing to, right? So you
Absolutely.
feel good. So I heard an expression: if you want to change the world, you start with one person at a time, and you start with yourself, right? So so
Yep.
if I feel good and I enjoy what I'm doing and I'm loving it, and for me, a part of that is if you're doing it from an authentic place, that's even better. So if it's I'm truly doing what I do, what I love doing, and I don't think about doing it, and you can have positive. I'll tell you a quick story. I'm
Yep.
full of stories today. I'm like, you got me in a roll, Garrett.
Love it.
There was I used to work as an usher part time at the Scotia Bank Arena. That's where the Toronto Raptors play and the Maple Leafs play, right? I love basketball. I wanted to be around the space. I'm a Toronto guy. I love my sports team, so I went down there to work. I was there for like 15 years. Loved it. Best job I ever had. A lot of fun. Hated I had to leave there eventually, but you grow up and live life, and so I had to go. Years later, I got a message from someone on social media who I didn't recognize the person. And it was like, hey, how you doing? It was almost like a long lost friend that they've known you forever. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? This conversation went back and forth, and she said, "Oh yeah, I remember you from the arena. Oh my gosh, and thank you. And we had so much fun." And I'm looking at this person, and I'm like, "Yeah, I have no idea, no Garrett, no clue who this woman was, no clue."
Right.
And I guess as we are going back and forth, she sends me a photo of her and I. And
Oh,
I'm
wow.
looking at that and I'm going, nope, that is me. I still don't recognize her though. I still don't know what I'm doing, right? And it's yeah, and I remember initially kind of feel, oh, I feel a little bad. I don't remember her. This because person remembers me. But when I really thought about it, the reason why I didn't remember her is because I wasn't trying to create an experience in that moment. I was just authentically being who I am. And when you're
Yeah.
being who you are, you're not having to think about it. You're not having to generate something to make something. I was just naturally being. So if I'm doing that all the time, it's not gonna it's those specifics aren't gonna resonate with me 15 years later because I still don't remember the interaction, but she clearly did.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's really falling back to if you can behave in that space authentically, who you are, and those ripple effects can take place, and it's just because you're being you, and that's kind of what I take from that.
Well, and the fact that you're in a place where you get to be yourself and like express your strengths
Yeah,
consistently every day, it's just another day for you. But
right.
for them in that moment, at that time, being in your presence was such a change for them that it made it more unique and special. You weren't the main feature, the main attraction,
No.
but you absolutely made it personalized for them
Yep.
and elevated their experience, not by doing anything special, just by being you. And that's a
Right.
good sign of like a match and a fit, like you said.
Hmm.
And that's what we're looking for. And when
Yeah.
you're a professional and you're working on a team, if you're showing up anxious, overwhelmed, feeling like an imposter and like
That's it.
concerned about the bottom line, not getting the
That's
good
it.
sleep, that feeling ripples out to the rest of the people on your team. It ripples out to the people they serve, and eventually it ripples out to the customers. And I feel like everybody feels that eventually.
Hmm.
Back when I first worked in fitness, I was at a really big global gym, and there would people come up, the members would come up. They're paying good money. They're showing up every day. They care about this place. They spend a lot of time there. This is like their third home, their fourth home.
Yeah.
And they'd be really frustrated. They're like, hey, man, this piece of equipment has been down for 4 days, 5 days, and it's something I use every day. Like, what's going on with it? I'm like, well, and unfortunately, the bean counters up in corporate, wherever that was, they didn't have to talk to that customer. They didn't have to
Gotcha.
deal with them every day.
That's
They just
right.
had to deal with the spreadsheets and the numbers and the
That's
return on
right.
investment and what looked good for them they didn't see that frown on that person's face.
Right.
And there wasn't a good feedback mechanism for me to share my frustrations of that customer with them in a way. And they had chosen to disappoint that customer and not have that piece of equipment up in time. And
Mm.
unfortunately, that is a business model and it's not necessarily an unsuccessful one. But what it did for me was it made it impossible for me to engage with that person authentically. Because
Right.
if I know that they're not going to fix it,
Right.
and I know
Right.
I'm going to lie to this person and be like,
Yeah.
nope, we're going to have it next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to
Right.
avoid that person. I'm not going to make eye contact. I'm not going to be
That's
present.
it.
I can't have value and pride in my job and my
Right.
position. I can't
Right.
interact with them. And that's like a pretty silly, small version of that. But I feel like a lot of people are experiencing a version of that when they walk out in the world day to day, that they
Yeah.
don't feel like they could be aligned with it. And
Mm.
later, when I was in charge, when I was the boss, the one looking at the spreadsheets and making all the numbers, stressing over if we're going to hit the budgets or the goals, there's choices you make, figuring out
Yes.
how to get it there or not. And I had a back pain and struggles with my personal relationships, angry at the dog because of all the lack of sleep and trying to make it happen. And it bled out to my team. I went and
Yeah.
got some support. I got some help, and within 90 days after that, spreadsheet was looking better than ever. My sleep was better than ever. My back pain was gone. My relationship was good. My dog was doing better. But more importantly, our turnover with the team was better. They were happier. They were less stressed. And that ripple effect, I was the asshole, right? And if I was
Yes.
better, everyone else was better
Yes.
around me. And
Yes.
so, like you said, reach one, teach one, start with yourself and
Hmm.
work your way out for sure. Yeah.
So Garrett, I don't think any one in a leadership role or a leadership
Hmm.
position
Hmm.
sees any value on bringing misery to their team, right? I think all leaders will recognize that um, that they need their team to be successful.
Sure.
What I think isn't necessarily recognized to the same degree is the impacts, the things that you described as an example, and how
Yep.
that can impact teams and how it floats out and filters out to everyone else. So I think there's a disconnect between the two, and I don't think that
Yep.
enough leaders recognize truly their role and impact and influence that they have on their team's overall performance.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we think a lot of our leadership terminology and even like the intent behind it has come from some outdated models. They've come from these like hierarchical organizations, typically military, more factory models. And in those settings, people were treated not as people. They were
Right.
treated as like parts, right? Parts of this process. They weren't individuals with souls,
Yeah.
quirks, personalities,
Right.
differences, values. They were just expected to perform the bare minimum and get out there. And that was it.
Mm,
That doesn't work anymore. I
no.
don't think it's worked for a long time. And I think every time people try to make it work, what they do is just burn through their workforce really quickly. Unfortunately, now 77% of the population is experiencing burnout on like an annual basis. So
Mm.
that's not going to work because there's no one not burned out for them to come in and replace the people with.
Right. Right.
And so now our models of leadership, we have to start questioning them because these command and control, military top down, doesn't really seem to be working for most people. So instead, I think there's a better model out there. It's this idea of like a real relational leader, which is a little bit different. So if you're stressed out and you're on my team and I'm stressed out, if you come to me with your problems and I have my own problems and now we're in a problem and things just get worse. And if you've ever been in a partnership that's lasted and your partner's mad and you're mad about the thing the partner's doing, that's a really challenging dynamic to work through. That's why we enlist the help of professionals. That's why marriage and family therapists exist.
Right.
And when you go to a marriage and family therapist, you come up, that therapist stays nice and regulated. So then you can come back down. Your partner goes up, they come back down. And then they model that behavior so you can hopefully take that dynamic home and work on it yourself that same way.
Right.
But
Right.
as a leader, it's not so different. If you can stay grounded and present and comfortable and open and regulated, and that person can bring their stress to you and you can actually help them work through it,
Yep.
not take it on form, but help them work through it, they can go back to work and you can get back to a regulated state. And now
Yeah.
everything's okay. We can create this collaborative environment. But if instead they come to you and they're like, man, I'm stressed. And you're like, yeah, you think that's stressful? I'll give you something more stressful, right? Like the kids, parents with kids, like, yo,
Oh,
you're crying
that's
about that. I'll give
nothing.
you something to cry
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That
I remember,
doesn't seem to really
yeah.
work.
I
Yeah.
remember I had a colleague at work, and no matter what you said, I could one up you. Oh, that's nothing. I got that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's actually funny.
Absolutely. And so being skilled at that as a leader, I think is the way forward, in an actual way forward.
And it seems like a really actionable strategy. Like it can be done, and nothing that you've described thus far suggests that's too hard or too difficult, right? It's doable.
It's definitely doable. It's simple, but that doesn't mean it's always easy, right? You got deadlines, you got things going on, being able to stay through like an emotionally regulated state is a skill. And I don't think we get trained how to do it at a young age. So I don't think a lot of people have an example. I don't think people have had lived experience. Like you're talking about with the turkey, we take the legs off and put it in
Yeah.
there because that's just what we do. And you're like, well, we did that because the pot was too small. We got a bigger pot now, so we don't need to do that.
Right.
If we don't understand how to regulate our own emotions, we can't help other people do that for themselves. And when we're leaders, that's actually probably the primary job. It's like the
Yeah.
prerequisite to the rest of the work that needs to get done. And if that emotional labor isn't something you're good at or skilled with,
Hmm.
maybe starting there and developing that for yourself with others and then carrying it into the workplace is probably the most helpful way to get started on it.
I'm curious, how hypnotherapy helps you in your work and how you use that to help individuals. I'm assuming you're not like in having people like squawk like chickens or anything like that in that process like they do in Vegas shows, but and
Yeah.
that's I guess that's a traditional like when we think of hypnosis and hypnotherapy, that's what we think about, right? But I would imagine
Yeah.
that's not what it is, right? That's a
No,
safe assumption.
no, that's a pretty safe assumption. Yeah. I think my favorite part about those shows is like there's always like a sleight of hand in like magic, right? There's like you've seen the behind the scenes of how the magic trick's done, and once you've seen it, there's really no magic there. It's just
Right.
right. And so I'll let you in a little secret with those hypnotist shows, is there are people that walk in and out of a state of hypnosis all the time throughout the day. We do it when we wake up, when we go to sleep, when we're watching a movie and we're laughing or crying at that movie. That is a state of hypnosis. You know who that actor is. You may even know who their partner is in life. You may know something about their messy family divorce life and things going on with their kids because we know too much about celebrities nowadays, too much access.
Yes.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
if that doesn't take you out of it and you can stay in that story and you can laugh and cry at that portrayal of that actor in that moment, that's a state of hypnosis. And so people walk around in that all the time. When you go to a hypnotist show and there's someone on stage and he's asking for volunteers, he's sorting the crowd to find the most outgoing, uninhibited people possible. And he
Okay.
puts them on the stage. Okay, so we got these
Right.
20 people on stage that
Yep.
just are excited to be silly, right?
Yep.
And then he goes and gives them one simple command to see who is in and not in state of hypnosis right then and there. The people
Okay.
that are in state stay on stage, everyone else gets off stage. So now he's probably got 7 people. And some of those people are more inclined to do something than others. Sometimes it's sillier to have a really big guy act like a small person. Sometimes it's really fun to have a small person act really silly and do this thing. Sometimes it's fun to have someone who looks really serious act really silly. So that's the stage trick that he's doing is like that person's already in that state. They're already excited and uninhibited. These are things they would do around their friends normally anyway. They're just doing it at his command because they're in that state and they want to participate. So it's not like he has some secret magic control over these people. He's just getting them to lean into what they already want to do more of anyway. So
Mm,
that piece, all hypnosis is self hypnosis.
got you.
Hey, you have this conscious awareness of things and how they could be, but you have this subconscious belief that's driving it and they come in conflict. And when stress gets high, we revert back to what we know, what feels true in our heart, even if it's not helpful for us. And we do more of that. In hypnotherapy, we can put those two side by side and we can just make it a little bit easier to do the thing we know we want to do instead
Hmm.
of the things that we've been doing that we outgrew a long time ago. That when we bring it up to mind, like, hey, these are my Sunday shoes. Hey, pizza makes your hair curly. We know that these aren't necessarily like hard facts,
Right.
right?
Right.
But we believed them for so long that it's hard to let go of that belief and choose to believe something else. That happens experientially, not consciously. And so hypnotherapy is a great state to make those choices in.
And so thank you for sharing that sort of that behind the scenes or behind the curtain secret there, but people
Mhm.
self-select or that people they select those based on their willingness. 'Cause that's really what it is.
Oh,
If you don't
yes.
have and I think that really goes back even the therapy in general, that if there isn't
Yes.
a willingness to
100%.
embrace or there's skepticism or you're doubtful, you're not doing the process any justice. Like you need to be all in, so to speak, for it to work.
All in enough to show up and keep trying.
Okay. Okay.
Everyone's going to have some doubts,
Yep.
right? We just
Yep.
need 51%. We don't
Yep.
need 100%. We just need 51. We just need a slight majority. We probably even need 51. We could probably get away with 50.5.
Right.
Like we could
Right.
just a slight majority to show
Yep.
up and
That's
throw
all
your
you
name in
need.
the hat and put
That's
some
all you
work
need.
in
That's
over
all you
time.
need.
Yeah.
That's all you
Yeah.
need. I can't help but think that things like self-compassion, how important they are, like in terms of the overall process, giving ourselves some grace, recognizing that we're human, we're going to drop the ball and mess up. We're never going to get things perfect. But like we can't have those internal conversations with ourselves and exhibit that self-love and self-grace if we're not sort of committed to our own self-care. That's really what it is, right? And that to me seems an important part of that. Is there any sort of possible avenue of success without those elements from your perspective?
In the short run, sure. Right. If you're running a marathon and you're on mile 24 of 26, you
Hmm.
can yell at yourself to get yourself across the last 2 miles.
Got
But
you.
that yelling at yourself probably isn't what got you off the couch to finish that finish line. It may
Mm,
have been a voice you needed in very short incidences, very small doses. But if that's the only voice you have motivating you,
mm,
woo, boy, it's going to be a
mm.
really challenging existence to maintain.
Got you. So, for a
You're going to be
sustainability
harmed.
standpoint, really, is what you're saying, it's not going to last.
It can't. It can't.
Mm,
Yeah. And I do think that that's what's driving most people's burnout is the difference of that voice, that self-compassion, support, care, genuine appreciation for yourself and others as a result of that, versus the shame, blame, guilt, and fear voices that we listen to. Those are really powerful tools. They draw our attention in. We see them used all over everywhere in social media, but they're not sustainable action. They get you to react, but they don't get you to sustain action.
so what's the difference? I mean, you would think that, like, if you get started, like, so I don't know, like, so if you started, okay, you go off the couch, finish. Why can't it? Why can't it hold you and keep you going?
The idea of shame, blame, and guilt,
Yeah.
those are negative emotions that slow you down. They drain you. They make it
Mm,
harder to wake up and get moving. You know, like some food makes it harder to get off the couch, right? Lack of sleep makes it harder to get up and get active. There are emotions that make it harder for you to sustain actions, and there are emotions that make it easier to sustain actions.
okay.
And some are really, really powerful and really intense. So they can sustain action for a very short amount of time. Like I could jump like a broad jump, right? And I could travel a lot of distance really, really quickly, a couple of seconds, a lot of distance, maybe 6 feet, maybe, right? A lot of distance, right? But maybe the next jump is 4 feet. The next
Right.
broad jump is 3 feet. If you're really, really good, maybe it's 8 feet, but it's probably seven the next time, right?
Gotcha.
There's a point of diminishing turns really quick with those high intensity versus if I skip or I jog, I can cover the same, if not triple or quadruple amount of distance in roughly the same amount of time, maybe just a few seconds more. But then I
Mm,
can continue on after that and keep going and keep going and keep going.
right. Right.
So guilt, fear, shame, blame, those things really powerful, but really short-lived.
Got you.
Understanding, acceptance, love, care, gratitude, appreciation, excitement,
Sure.
enthusiasm, awe,
Sure.
curiosity.
Yeah.
Oh, you get those
Wow.
going, you know, those are almost like self-sustaining. The more of them
Yeah.
you have, the more of them you have, the more of them you have,
Yeah, more
right?
you have. Well, it's interesting. I even think of it like, say you're doing, I don't know, long distance run or a bike ride or something, right?
Yeah,
You kind of get to a point where you maybe, maybe that last leg you're tired, but you look back at how far you've come, and the even the appreciation of that journey is enough to push you
yeah,
forward, right?
absolutely. Gratitude and appreciation.
Yeah,
Like, look how far I've come, look how much I can
yeah,
do.
yeah,
I wonder how much more I can do. Let's see,
yeah, yeah.
right? That curiosity there
Curiosity jumps
after.
in. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, so then what advice would you give to someone who feels kind of trapped in that cycle? Whether it be like, being overworked or not being fulfilled in their life. Like what would you say to that person?
I look for moments where maybe they were fulfilled, just even for a brief second. You know, maybe it was last week sometime, not overall, but just a moment. Maybe even that would be too much, right?
Okay.
Maybe instead of saying like, where were you fulfilled last week? Maybe we say, where were you the not least fulfilled,
Mhm.
right? Where was your best moment, even if it wasn't your favorite moment, and even if it wasn't more than enough, it was not even nearly enough for you to feel fulfilled. What was it? Because there's a clue there. There's something to that that leads us in the right direction. And we're doing it with curiosity and interest. We're not doing it with like all or nothing thinking. We're
Right.
looking through this like self-harm measure where we're like, what's the least self-harm we can do? What's the most good we can do with where we are now? And a lot of that comes from like chronic pain management. So,
Yep.
okay, we can't do these big movements, but we can do this thing that doesn't hurt.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, why does that hurt and this doesn't? What is it about this that makes it different? And we get a lot of clues about how to move forward from there.
Mm.
And that's true for physical pain, but that's also true for mental, emotional discomfort as well.
I love it. I love it. Gary,
Yeah.
you've really done a great job in sort of, well, distilling some of the misbeliefs that are out there, and about how we get through this stuff, and as you've clearly said, the yelling at yourself and beating yourself up isn't one of them.
If it was, I think, it would have worked by now. right?
Yeah, no, it's true, and that happens, right? Like, people would have, people would have realized, yeah, this is a way to do it, and it's not. And so, I appreciate you for dropping those insights and that wisdom. For individuals that wanted to connect with you directly, and learn more about your work, where can we send them, Garrett?
Yeah, you can go to my website. That's Gnosis Therapy. They can go to LinkedIn if they want to be real formal and very professional. They can message me on there. It's Garrett Wood and Gnosis Therapy. Or if they're on Instagram and they want to hang out there too, whatever's most sociable for them, I'm there. Yeah.
Got you. A quick question: when did you realize hypnosis? Like, did you start there, or that work into the work that you were doing? When did you come to that
Yeah.
realization it's going to be helpful?
Yeah. So I started working through stress and response through the body mostly.
Yeah,
So, and then it got to a certain point where that only got so far. You kind of hit as far as you can go with
yeah,
that, right?
yeah. Naturally,
And
yeah.
there's a part in which sometimes our memories play into some of that pain. So pain is like physically thought of as like an injury, like a physical injury. But
Yes,
we have phantom limb pain, right? So people don't have a limb anymore, but that limb is still itchy. That limb is in pain, but there's no limb there. So
yes,
clearly it's not tied just to that. There's something else going on.
yeah,
And when we have a rapid change like that in your body, your brain takes a while to understand that map, the new map of where your body ends and begins and what's comfortable and uncomfortable for it. And pain is often thought of as like an actual like type of sensation, but we just have hot, cold, slap, tickle, poke, itch, like deep pressure, light pressure. That's it. Pain isn't one of those things.
right.
So pain might actually be better thought of as like an emotion, just like happiness and sadness
Hmm.
is.
Hmm.
In a lot of countries, they don't actually have depression, they have pain. There's some countries where that concept in this like vernacular, the zeitgeist of that language, they don't have the term depression. Instead, they have sadness and pain combined. And so what's really interesting for me is when I was working with the body, you could only chase pain so far
Yeah.
before you get
Mm. Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
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 And so
Yeah.
that's where it's like, okay, if we're in the mind, we're in the memory,
Yes.
and we have this
Yes.
pain.
Yeah.
What's going on here? How do we address this? We can't touch it. We can't point to it, but it's still showing up. So what do we do? How do we work with that? And that's where the hypnotherapy started
Makes
showing up.
sense.
Yeah.
Well, totally makes sense. It's like it's really what it's like. Okay, what else can we do, or where else can we look? And that's kind of clearly. And I think the mind is I mean, for many, the mind is a starting point. As much as we talk about the physical pain, the mind is a starting point. And so, that's very cool. Listen, I've appreciated this, Garrett. I really, really have. I think that the insight's been fantastic. It's great. The work you do is so important in terms of helping people uncover and realize and deal with burnout, as well as imposter syndrome, which is another piece of the work that you do too. I think those are all important aspects of in terms of how we deal with them. So thank you for that, and I really appreciate you being a guest today here on the Audacious Living Podcast.
It's so fun to spend my morning with you. Thanks for having a chance to share some of this.
Cool. Back, we are here on the podcast. One of the biggest takeaways from my conversation with Garrett, it's this: burnout is not a failure of effort. It is often a failure of awareness and self-compassion. Garrett made it clear that many high performers burn out not because they lack discipline, because their identity becomes tied to suffering, overworking, and pushing through pain. When hard work becomes, who you are, rest can feel like a threat instead of a necessity. What I personally loved about this conversation was how Garrett reframed strength. We often think strength looks like grinding and pushing and enduring at all costs. What really stood out to me was the emphasis on emotional regulation and self-compassion as actual leadership skills. That definitely hit home, because when we are dysregulated, exhausted, and disconnected from ourselves, that energy doesn't stop with us. It shows up in our relationships, our teams, and the people we serve. This conversation reminded me that living audaciously is not about burning brighter. It's about burning smarter. It's about knowing when to push forward and when to pause, knowing when to lead and when to listen, and knowing when to take care of yourself is not selfish. It is responsible. If today's conversation resonated with you and you'd like to learn more about Garrett's work, you can connect with him directly. His website, of course, which you'll find in the show notes below, is at Gnosis Therapy. He also has a professional presence on LinkedIn. You can find him there too. And well, he's also active on Instagram. And again, all of his contact details are in the show notes for you to access. And I would encourage you to do so. Like I said, Garrett's got just really a wide plethora of just insights, knowledge, and resources that you can put behind yourself and help you on your own journey. Remember, the goal is not to drive yourself into the ground. It's to notice the signals, adjust the speed, check the dashboard, and choose a pace that allows you to enjoy the journey while still moving forward. Audacious living is not about never stopping. It's about knowing when stopping is exactly what keeps you going. Thank you for listening to the Audacious Living Podcast. If you found value in this episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, or share, or leave a review. Every single interaction helps this podcast grow and reach even more people who need to hear these conversations. Until next time, keep showing up, keep asking better questions, and keep living life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious.